I'm quite sure I have lived longer than perhaps anyone who hears this brief message. And I would have to say that in all the years that I have lived, and that makes 92 right now, I've never experienced anything like the present lockdown. I've never known of a time when so many things in our lives were interrupted or restricted. How long has this been going on? Well, I guess about 2 months now. And our impatience grows each day. Now there are demonstrations in parts of America demanding that we open up our society again. But we need to keep things in perspective. You should remember that in Old Testament times, the people of Israel were in Egypt for 400 years. Now it's true that in the early part of their sojourn there, they were favored, but through much of that time, they were abused slaves. But God brought them out of Egypt and into the land of promise. Later, when the children of Israel had occupied the land God had given to them, they became disobedient, and God allowed them to go into captivity in Assyria first, and then later in Babylon. The nation of Judah came back, but they had been in Babylon for 70 years. In that period between the Old and the New Testaments, a period of about 400 years, which is almost twice as long as America has been in existence. During that time, the Israelites were captive first to the Persians, and then to the Greeks, and then to the Romans. But God used that difficult time in order to prepare the world for the birth of Christ and the beginning of the church. And when the church began, for the first 200 years, it faced fierce persecution. And it was not until the Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity that Christianity became the favored religion of the empire. Now, I mention all this history just to provide some perspective. We've been inconvenienced for a few months, and these restrictions will probably go on for a while longer. But what we've been experiencing is really nothing compared to what the people of God have suffered in the past. Now, I'm not saying this is not serious. It is. People are dying. Some 60,000 Americans have died from this coronavirus. We're seeing businesses shut down, some of which represent a lifetime of work, and sadly, some of them will never open again. We are finding that we're restricted in the activities to which we can engage, and we're asked to stay in our homes, and millions of people are out of work. But for most of us, it's merely an inconvenience. For some, a serious inconvenience, but for most of us, it's not a life-shattering experience. We can't eat in our favorite restaurants. Our schools are closed. We cannot gather in groups, so we have to worship apart. And for the first time in the history of America, the churches are closed down. And we can't always find Charmin in our stores. I find myself complaining because they won't let us ride golf carts anymore, or because I can't watch the Nuggets or the Rockies. But this will pass. God brought Israel out of Egypt, and God brought Judah out of Babylon. And God used the Greek captivity of Israel to provide a time for the coming of the Messiah, the Savior of the world. I believe that promise still holds today, which God made to Joshua after the death of Moses, as Joshua assumed the responsibility for leading the nation of Israel. In Joshua 1:5, God promised, "I will never leave you or forsake you." And I believe that's still true today. So someday we'll be released from our present captivity, and we'll be able to join together again in joyous worship. And you know what? I think we will appreciate it more than we ever have before.